In this vast, chaotic world, we often find ourselves struggling to make sense of it all. The noise of daily life, the constant rush of thoughts, the overwhelming flood of distractions, it can all leave us feeling disconnected, lost in the tide of it. But there is a way to break free from this cacophony, to tap into a source of wisdom and peace that transcends our fleeting worries. That way is through meditation, a simple yet profound practice that unlocks the door to divine awareness. Divine awareness is not an abstract concept, a distant ideal, or an unreachable state reserved for few. It is, in its truest sense, an experience available to each and every one of us, hidden just beneath the surface of our everyday lives. To unlock it, however, we must first recognize its existence, and we must actively seek to cultivate it within ourselves. Divine awareness is an invitation to see beyond the surface of reality, to pierce through the layers of distractions, to reach for that which lies beyond the veil of our ordinary perception. It is to understand that in every moment the divine is present, that something greater than ourselves is always at work, even when we cannot immediately perceive it. It is a quiet but profound recognition that there is something greater than us, something that transcends our limited perspectives, and that this presence is available to us if only we open our hearts and minds to it. For many, divine awareness can feel distant, as though it belongs to an elite few, those who have achieved some higher state of spiritual enlightenment or devotion. But this perception is, in many ways, a misconception. Divine awareness is not reserved for saints, mystics, or extraordinary individuals. It is a potential within each of us, waiting to be realized. The challenge, however, is that our lives are often so filled with noise, both external and internal, that we are rarely able to hear the still, small voice of the divine. We are distracted by our thoughts, our concerns, our ambitions, and our daily struggles, all of which cloud our ability to connect with the deeper, more subtle aspects of existence. Yet this divine presence is always there, just beneath the surface, waiting for us to be still enough to notice it. The nature of divine awareness is both simple and profound. It is simple in that it does not require us to become something other than what we already are. It does not demand that we change our essential nature, or that we seek something beyond our reach. It is about shifting our focus, directing our attention inward, and tuning into the frequencies of the universe that are always around us. In this sense, divine awareness is not an external phenomenon. It is an internal realization. It is the recognition that we are, in fact, part of the divine, that we are not separate from the source of all creation, but intrinsically woven into the fabric of existence. The divine is not some distant entity to be sought after or reached for. It is the very essence of who we are. But while divine awareness is simple in nature, it is also profoundly transformative. Once we begin to open ourselves to it, we are changed. This transformation does not occur through effort or willpower alone, but through a quiet surrender to the awareness that is already present. It is in the moment of stillness, when we let go of our striving, that we begin to experience the divine in its fullness. We are not required to force a connection, to chase after the divine, or to achieve some state of spiritual perfection. The divine is already within us, already present in every moment. To access divine awareness, we must first let go of our attachment to the distractions and noise that so often dominate our lives. The mind is a relentless force, constantly spinning with thoughts, worries, and desires. These thoughts are not inherently bad, but when we become consumed by them, they prevent us from connecting with the deeper dimensions of reality. Our minds, like a turbulent ocean, make it difficult for us to see the stillness beneath the surface. Yet, beneath that surface, there is always calm, always a steady presence that does not change with the ebb and flow of our thoughts. Divine awareness lies in this stillness. It is the peace that remains when the mind settles, the quiet that emerges when we cease our striving, when we stop chasing after the next thought of the next experience. It is in these moments of stillness that we catch glimpses of the divine. And as we practice stillness, through meditation or simply through being present in the moment, we learn to access this awareness more fully, to hear the divine whispers that have always been there. The path to divine awareness is, in many ways, a journey of surrender. It is a surrender of the need to control, of the desire to define or shape our experiences. This does not mean abandoning our responsibility or ceasing to act, but rather learning to relinquish the sense of control that comes from our ego, our sense of self. The ego constantly wants to define, categorize, and possess, but the divine cannot be contained by such limitations. The divine is beyond our small personal grasp. It exists outside the confines of our limited understanding. To access it, we must let go of the need to possess it, to define it, or to box it in. This surrender allows us to become open and receptive to the divine, allowing it to flow into our lives without restriction or obstruction. In this process of surrender, we also learn to trust. Divine awareness is not something that can be forced or controlled. It does not conform to our schedules, our agendas, or our expectations. It is not something that can be planned or predicted. It is a flow, a current that moves through us when we are open to it. This requires trust, the trust that we do not need to know everything, that we do not need to have all the answers, that the divine will reveal itself in its own time. Trust is the key that unlocks the door to divine awareness. It is a trust in the process, a belief that we do not have to control the outcome, but simply allow it to unfold. Through this trust, we begin to align ourselves with the divine, to attune ourselves to its rhythm and flow. As we begin to recognize the presence of divine awareness in our lives, we begin to see the world differently. We realize that the divine is not separate from us, but is present in every moment, every experience, and every interaction. Every person we meet, every challenge we face, every moment of joy or sorrow becomes an opportunity to connect with the divine. Divine awareness is not confined to a sacred space or a specific practice. It permeates every aspect of our existence. When we begin to see with divine eyes, we recognize that the ordinary becomes extraordinary, that every moment, ultimately the unlocking of divine awareness, is not about reaching a specific goal or achieving a particular state. It is about opening ourselves to the possibility that the divine is already here, already within us, already present in every moment. It is a process of awakening to that which has always been, of shedding the layers of distraction and illusion. Through this awakening, we are transformed, not into something new, but into the truest versions of ourselves, more aligned with the divine that resides in each of us. Meditation is often misunderstood as merely a practice for relaxation or stress reduction. While these benefits are certainly part of it, meditation is far more profound. It is the gateway through which we can access divine awareness. In the frantic pace of modern life, we are constantly pulled in 1,000 directions, our attention divided and our minds overwhelmed. The noise of the world fills our senses, drowning out the subtle whispers of something greater. Meditation in its simplest form offers a respite from this chaos, but it also holds the key to something deeper, a path to a higher state of consciousness, a connection to the divine. Meditation is not an act of escape, but of engagement. It is an act of turning inward, of quieting the external world so that we can listen more attentively to the inner world. This is not to say that we completely eliminate our thoughts, or that we can reach a state of perfect stillness at will. But through the practice of meditation, we begin to cultivate a deeper awareness of our thoughts and emotions. recognizing them for what they are, not permanent fixtures of our being. At its core, meditation is about learning to observe without attachment. It's easy to become lost in our thoughts, to believe that we are our thoughts, that they define who we are. But through meditation, we come to understand that we are not our thoughts, just as we are not our feelings or our circumstances. We are the observer, the witness to these fleeting mental and emotional states. This recognition is profound because it allows us to step outside of the constant noise and begin to touch something deeper, something beyond the turmoil of the mind. When we detach from our thoughts, we begin to tap into a quieter space, a space where divine awareness can emerge. This process is not immediate. They are subtle, often easily overlooked, but they carry with them a profound truth that the divine presence is always available to us, always waiting to be recognized. One of the most important aspects of meditation is that it creates a space in which we can be truly present. In the busyness of daily life, we are often consumed by worries about the future or regrets about the past. Our minds are rarely in the present moment. Meditation teaches us to let go of time and simply exist in the moment. Furthermore, meditation is an ongoing practice, not something that can be mastered in a few sessions. It requires discipline and commitment, not because we are trying to achieve a particular state, but because it is through regular practice that we begin to attune ourselves to the divine. Just as an instrument requires tuning to be played at its best, our hearts and minds require tuning to hear the subtle frequencies of the divine. This is a process that unfolds over time, often in ways that are not immediately apparent. The benefits of meditation are cumulative, with each session bringing us closer to a deeper awareness of the divine presence that is always within us. As we continue to practice, we begin to notice that divine awareness does not only emerge in the quiet of meditation, it begins to infuse all aspects of our lives. We become more attuned to the sacredness of each moment, recognizing that the divine is not confined to a specific place or time, but is present in everything we do. The power of meditation lies in its ability to help us transcend the limitations of our ordinary perception. We see beyond the surface of things, beyond the constant chatter of the mind, and begin to experience a deeper sense of connection to the universe, to others, and to ourselves. Meditation reveals that we are not isolated, separate beings, but part of a larger whole. In this space, we experience the interconnectedness of all things, and in doing so, we touch the divine that unites everything. Through meditation, we discover that the divine is not something far away, but something intimately close, something that lives within us, and that we can access at any moment if we only make the effort to listen. The struggle to quiet the mind is one of the most significant obstacles on the path to meditation and spiritual awareness. In our modern world, our minds are constantly bombarded with noise. Whether it is the literal noise of traffic, conversations, or the virtual noise of social media and the endless flow of information, these external distractions are compounded by the internal noise that we all carry. The worries about the future, the regrets of the past, the desires and fears that occupy our thoughts, the emotions that rise unbidden and take hold. It is easy to feel overwhelmed, as though our minds are racing, endlessly chasing after the next thought. The struggle to quiet this noise can feel insurmountable at times, but it is precisely this struggle that becomes the most profound opportunity for growth and transformation. In the early stages of meditation, many people are confronted by this very challenge, the mind's incessant chatter. It is as though the moment we sit down to meditate, our minds decide to turn on in full force, bringing with them every unfinished task, every unresolved emotion, and every anxiety. The very act of trying to still the mind can lead to greater frustration as we realize how difficult it is to control or silence the thoughts that arise. But what if the struggle itself were not the problem, but the solution? What if the struggle to quiet the mind were the doorway to something deeper? It is important to recognize that the struggle to quiet the mind is not something to be overcome or eradicated. Instead, it is an integral part of the process. When we sit to meditate, we are not trying to fight with our thoughts or suppress them. The mind is not an enemy that must be defeated. The mind, like any part of us, is simply doing its job. It is designed to think, to plan, to process information. But just as the body needs rest, so too does the mind need moments of stillness. The key to meditation is not in the absence of thought, but in the awareness of thought. It is not about eliminating our mental activity, but learning to observe it without becoming attached to it. The mind will always produce thoughts. It is not realistic to expect that we will reach a point where the mind becomes completely still. Instead, we must shift our approach and learn to simply notice the thoughts as they arise, without judgment or resistance. When a thought comes to mind, we do not need to chase after it or analyze it. We simply acknowledge its presence and allow it to pass like a cloud drifting across the sky. This is where the practice of mindfulness comes in. It teaches us to observe, not to control. The moment we accept the presence of thoughts, rather than struggling to force them away, we create space for the mind to settle naturally. The more we practice this, the more we begin to notice a subtle shift. The thoughts become less dominant, less insistent. The mind, which was once a loud and unruly force, begins to calm. The noise that once seemed so overwhelming now feels less like a constant storm and more like the ebb and flow of the ocean. There, but not overwhelming. The quiet does not come suddenly or all at once. Over time, as we train ourselves to remain present with our thoughts without getting caught up in them, we find that the moments of stillness become longer and more frequent. It is essential to recognize that this process takes time. The mind, like any part of the body, cannot be forced into stillness. It must be gently guided. Just as we would not expect to lift a heavy weight the first time we try to lift it, we cannot expect our minds to fall into perfect stillness on our first attempt at meditation. The struggle is part of the learning process. It is through the repeated practice of noticing our thoughts and returning our focus to the present moment that we begin to train the mind to quiet itself. This is a gradual process, one that requires patience and persistence. Each time we sit down to meditate, even if we feel that our minds are as active as ever, we are making progress. The act of sitting with the mind, of observing it, is itself an achievement. There is a lesson here. The struggle with the mind is not a failure. It is an opportunity to practice compassion toward ourselves. When we sit in meditation and find our minds racing, we can be gentle with ourselves. Instead of judging ourselves for not being able to quiet the mind, we can simply acknowledge the difficulty and return our focus to our breath or to our point of meditation. In fact, the very experience of struggling with our thoughts offers us the chance to deepen our practice. It invites us to cultivate patience, compassion, and understanding, not just toward our minds, but toward ourselves. Through this process, we learn that there is no perfect state of mind. It is also important to understand that the more we resist the mind's activity, the stronger it becomes. Resistance creates tension, and this tension only feeds the very thing we are trying to avoid. The key, then, is not in fighting our thoughts, but in accepting them. We are not our thoughts. They do not define us. Thoughts are like passing clouds, temporary and fleeting. The more we accept their presence without judgment, the less power they have over us. This acceptance creates space for the mind to settle on its own. It is like holding a tense string and gently loosening our grip. As we let go, the string naturally begins to relax. In the practice of meditation, we learn that we do not need to control the mind. We only need to be present with it. The mind is not something that needs to be vanquished. It is a tool, a part of us that can be trained and guided. As we continue to practice, the mind becomes less of a hindrance. We learn to harness the energy of the mind without being controlled by it. Through this process, we move closer to the stillness that lies beneath the surface, to the divine presence that is always available to us. In the end, the struggle to quiet the mind is not a battle to be won, but a dance of awareness, a continuous process of learning to live with and alongside our thoughts, while simultaneously finding the space to connect with something deeper. When we think of divine awareness, it is often easy to imagine it as something grand and distant, an ethereal realm only accessible to those who have transcended ordinary human experience. What meditation offers us is the ability to access this divine awareness, not as something separate or apart from us, but as something intimately connected to who we are. Through meditation, we learn to clear away the distractions that obscure our vision and allow ourselves to experience the divine that is woven into the very fabric of our existence. In the busyness of life, it is easy to become disconnected from the deeper realities that lie beneath the surface of our everyday experiences. We become so consumed by tasks, responsibilities, and the endless flow of information that we forget that there is something beyond all of this, the divine presence that underpins everything. Meditation is a practice that allows us to reconnect with this deeper truth. By quieting the mind, stilling the body, and opening ourselves to the present moment, we allow ourselves to access the subtle dimensions of reality that often go unnoticed. In this space of quiet stillness, we open ourselves to the awareness of the divine that is always present, but often obscured by the noise of our daily lives. The practice of meditation involves learning to focus the mind not on external objects or distractions, but on the internal space of awareness itself. It is through this focused attention that we begin to peel back the layers of distraction and illusion, revealing the divine presence that is always present, always available. The challenge, however, is that this divine awareness does not reveal itself on our terms. It does not come when we demand it, nor does it appear according to our expectations. Instead, divine awareness emerges gradually, like the dawning of light on a dark horizon. It is a subtle shift in perception, a moment when we see beyond the surface and recognize the deeper truths that lie beneath. One of the key aspects of meditation that facilitates this process is the cultivation of mindfulness. Mindfulness is the practice of being fully present in the moment, without judgment or attachment. When we meditate, we begin to train our minds to focus on the present moment, rather than on the endless stream of thoughts, worries, and distractions that pull us away from the now. This practice of mindfulness is not about forcing the mind to be quiet, but about gently guiding it back to the present when it drifts away. Through mindfulness, we learn to notice the subtle movements of our thoughts and emotions, and we begin to cultivate an awareness that is not clouded by judgment. As we deepen our meditation practice, we begin to notice that divine awareness is not just something that arises in the quiet moments of meditation. It begins to permeate our daily lives, influencing the way we interact with the world around us. The more we cultivate mindfulness and presence, the more we see the divine in the ordinary. Every moment becomes an opportunity to connect with the divine, to see beyond the surface of things, and recognize the sacredness that exists in all of life. Whether we are walking down the street, sitting with a friend, or simply observing the beauty of nature, the awareness of the divine begins to infuse all aspects of our experience. In this way, meditation becomes not just a practice, but a way of life. It is not something we do for a brief period each day and then leave behind when we go back to our daily routines. Meditation, when practiced consistently, begins to shape our entire approach to life. It shifts the way we perceive ourselves, others, and the world. We begin to see that everything is interconnected, that every person, every experience, every moment is imbued with the divine presence. Through this awareness, we cultivate a deep sense of compassion and gratitude. Meditation also offers a way to release the attachments and expectations that keep us disconnected from the divine. Often, our minds are clouded by desires, fears, and judgments that prevent us from experiencing the present moment as it truly is. We chase after external achievements, possessions, and experiences in the belief that they will bring us fulfillment. Yet this constant striving often leaves us feeling empty and disconnected. Through meditation, we learn to let go of these attachments and to simply be present with what is. We learn to accept life as it is without the need to control or manipulate it. This surrender allows us to open ourselves more fully to the divine, recognizing that fulfillment does not come from external sources, but from the deep well of divine presence within. As we continue to meditate and deepen our awareness, we begin to understand that divine awareness is not a destination, but an ongoing process. It is not something that can be grasped or possessed, but something that we continually return to, moment by moment. In each moment of stillness, we have the opportunity to connect with the divine, to experience the profound peace that comes from knowing that we are not separate from the universe. But meditation, then, is not just a technique for quieting the mind, but a practice for awakening to the truth of our existence, that we are part of something much greater than ourselves, and that this greater reality is always with us, waiting for us to become aware of it. Through meditation, we unlock this divine awareness, and in doing so, we begin to live in a way that is more aligned with the deepest truths of who we are.